aiz loga līst lietus, mēs meklējam sauli. Kad jūtamies vientuļi, mēs satiekamies. Kad meklējam atbalstu, mēs esam ģimene. Kad esam noguruši, mēs atpūšamies. Kad vēlamies ko mainīt, mēs mācamies. Bet kad prieks par atkal redzēšanos, mēs dziedam. Mēs esam tauta. Šodien, rīt, vienmēr.
Well, good afternoon from New Zealand. I believe it's 2 a.m. in Latvia, midnight in the UK, and 7 p.m. in Tennessee, US. And today I am my guest is Master Kuldrin, and we're going to talk about BDSM and a healthy, and with emphasis on healthy power exchange relationship. However, before I jump into today's topic, there are a few things I want to cover. And the first thing is that this particular episode is meant for audiences 18 years and older. So if you're not 18 yet, sorry. And language. So obviously this show, I guess, is the first or one of the first few shows in English. So it will be in English. I might do a follow-up episode in Latvian, but today, obviously, it will be in English. And the last point I wish to cover is comments, because so please, it's okay to have a different opinion, but we learn to express it in a respectful way. So any comments which I will find offensive or inappropriate will be deleted and you might be banned. So saying that, welcome Master Kuldrin. Welcome to Tauta.
Thank you so very much. Kuldrin is fine. I do appreciate the acknowledgement there of a title, not the way some people look at it.
Well, I've been listening to your show about 2 years and really enjoy it. But I believe most of people who are watching today don't know who you are, and maybe we'll start with that. Well, maybe you could just briefly introduce with yourself and how long you've been in the lifestyle and so on.
Certainly. I've started in 1995 when I was 18. So 26 years now. Practiced BDSM. I've had my podcast for 5 years post the movie 50 Shades of Grey. There was so much abuse that came out from that after hearing story after story of people, sometimes intentionally, sometimes not, but ignorance is no excuse for abuse. So I decided that being a person that loves to teach, I would start teaching in an international format and come out with Kuldrin's Crypt, a BDSM 101 podcast to hopefully help prevent abuse. And it's been an amazing 5-year journey. It will be November the 7th will be my 5-year anniversary.
Well, I can certainly say I enjoy your show very much. And as I said, your other half, your submissive, Mayfair, is a wonderful extension to you. I think she's just, the way you complement each other is amazing to watch. And actually I can learn so much from you two. So it's been great. And thank you for doing what you're doing, guys. So really enjoy it.
Thank you.
Anyway, we'll give some acknowledgement to our people who are watching today. So obviously they all are saying in Latvian, but doesn't matter. I will just say they just saying hello. Basically, that's all what they're saying.
Hello, everyone.
And well, just laughing about the rules, because obviously the rules was the show's going to be in English. It's okay, actually. It's okay to comment in Latvian, but obviously Master Kuldrin don't know the language, so it's hard for him. So anyway, so people saying hi, and that's pretty much it. Let's go back to, let's start with the basics. I mentioned more than once BDSM. What these wonderful 4 letters stand for? Let me guess. Is it beautiful daisies in a beautiful daisies in a sunny meadow?
That might be how it makes you feel. But it's actually a compound acronym. It stands for bondage, discipline, dominance, and submission, and sadomasochism. So we are a people that enjoy the natural endorphin rush that doing these things can do, like riding a roller coaster, only sometimes a lot kinkier, and other times a lot more cathartic, where it brings you to a spiritual release and lots of tears.
Yep. And it is pretty much. It's true. But I actually want to talk about a healthy BDSM relationships, and so maybe let's start with what types of power exchange, in particular about power exchange relationships we're gonna talk. So what kind of power exchange relationships there are, and how they are different from each other, because it's quite easy to get confused, to be honest.
Yes. Well, you've got to start at just playfulness and what we call scening, like a movie scene. You have a top bottom experience where one person being the top is doing an action to another person, whether it's flogging or humiliating or degradation, impact play, fire play. A lot of people are familiar with fire cupping and acupuncture as forms of ancient Asian medicine, but we in the BDSM community have taken that and turned that into a type of fun play, because it can you can reach a catharsis from it. So the top bottom type of dynamic is certainly one of the ones that I participate in a lot. Then you've got the dominant submissive dynamic, and this is basically just where one person, whether male, female, non-binary, transgender, they take the dominant role in the relationship, and they dictate what is done, when it's done, where it's done. But the true power there lies within the hands of the submissive, because everything is negotiated, and everything that we do within the BDSM lifestyle, negotiation and consent is the absolute number one rule before anything happens. But that the dom sub relationship or power exchange, power dynamic is one that I participate in. You talked about my co-host and my submissive Mayfair. She is my submissive, and we have been together for 4 years. Everything that we have is actually written out in a contract that we revisit and on a schedule, but it can also be revisited whenever there is a need for it. If I feel that there's a need for it, if she feels there's a need for it. And again, that's going back to consent, and because that's what brings the enjoyment. She has a managerial position at work, And when she gets off work, she doesn't want to have to make decisions.
Mm.
I'm the kind of person that enjoys making decisions. So she has turned over certain things to me to make those decisions on. I do not control her finances. I do not control anything involving her job. That is work. But almost everything else outside of that is up to me to control. Now, Pat, so you've got the top bottom for play, you've got dominant submissive, and then you have master slave. Whoops. This pin right here on my vest is master slave pride. While I don't currently have a slave, that is a 24/7 dynamic. So this is where if Mayfair decided money, work, everything, if she wanted to turn it all over to me and say, you make all the decisions, let's do a 6-month contract on this where you have total power, then it would transform from a dom sub dynamic to a master slave dynamic. So that's the main difference there. But even then, there's a safe word. So
Right.
if something is going on and she feels, she or I, because I can also use a safe word to stop whatever's happening. And it doesn't matter if it's a conversation or if we're in the middle of a scene of some type or a sexual act of some type. Typically it's red would be the safe word. And if that is called, then everything immediately stops without any hesitation whatsoever. And we talk about it. We check in, we talk about it, and then we either renegotiate then or later, but we will renegotiate and debrief. We will come back. Like if she's upset or if I'm upset, we will come back later when we're both calm, because the number 2 rule that goes right along with the number 1 rule of consent is communication, because without communication, you cannot consent, which is why, animals, children, drugs and alcohol are not to be part of the BDSM lifestyle. Because if you're drunk or if you're high on marijuana or heroin or whatever, then it's you don't have the mental functioning to consent. So yeah.
Okay.
And another thing, I do want to kind of back up, if I may.
Yeah, sure.
Just in giving my introduction, I also worked in the psychology field in a psych hospital for 20 years. Or in a hospital in a geriatric psych facility for 20 years. So I take very much the psychological aspect of the human condition into what I do. So I greatly understand how important it is. So, all right. Thank you for letting me go back to that.
It's great. So if I understood correctly, so just for clarification, so the main difference between dom sub and master slave relationship is that one is 24/7, so total power exchange, another has limitations. So there's time off, time on. So
Yes.
is that
Yes,
correct?
absolutely. Yes.
And then obviously I want to talk more about the consent part, because that is very important. And that's what I want to educate people about, that everything is about consent. And unfortunately, which is pretty sad, there are people there who are attracted, unfortunately, to BDSM for completely wrong reasons, because they are either narcissists or somebody who's got specific personality, so antisocial personality disorders, and they believe that BDSM is a segue of basically to abuse somebody, which is completely wrong. And we'll talk about later with Master Kuldrin about red flags, what to look out for, because it is quite hard to actually recognize these people, at least at first. First time you meet them, you think they're very nice and charismatic, and then unfortunately later on they change their colors and they show their real face. But let's talk about that later. So about consent, what is consent? So you kind of already covered that, but let's deep in this a bit.
Consent is merely agreeing to do something or nothing. But it is an agreement, and I like to clarify that with informed consent. So if Mayfair and I are going to do something that we've never done before, or even when we do things that we have done all the time, there is still informed consent. So I know what is about to take place. She knows what is about to take place. We have worked out all the details, and we have agreed to participate in this. And we have also agreed that consent or that agreement can also be revoked or removed at any moment by using the safe word, by saying red. And that's the most basic breakdown of consent that I can come up with.
So when you should not, I guess let's talk about the non-consent scenario. So when you should not be renegotiating things, or when you should not asking somebody to consent on something which they might not actually later on might regret, or so on.
In the middle of a play session or sex or a scene, that is going back to what I said about children, animals, and intoxication. There is the physiological side of BDSM, with it bringing catharsis, or it activating your endorphins. And the endorphins are natural. You've got dopamine in there, and it makes you feel high. Well, that goes right back to that intoxicated part. And you cannot negotiate when you're intoxicated. Therefore, if you're in the middle of a scene and you're having a great time, and I ask you to do something that we haven't talked about yet, I'm taking advantage of you, because you are in an altered state of mind, and because you're having a good time, chances are you're more likely to say yes to whatever I'm asking you to do. So that's also something that is very looked down within the community for. I've seen people get kicked out. They're unable to attend any functions within the community. Whether it be just going to one of the what we call a munch, which is where kinky people get together at a vanilla restaurant and just spend time getting to know each other on a personal level outside of kinkiness. So they're not even allowed to attend those. And they're certainly not allowed to attend a party at someone's house or at a dungeon, because they have broken the rules. And they have taken advantage of someone. It's a very, very serious thing. And I think that's one of the things that's hard for other people that are not within our lifestyle to understand, just how important that really is to us.
Yeah, it is. And I guess we might revisit this later on, but I just want to, well, maybe you could guide us through if somebody is interested in a lifestyle, where to start and how long to wait till you move on from one stage? Again, I know there's no such thing as perfect relationship, and there's no such thing as a perfect scenario. But if there was one, let's say one perfect scenario, what you should do. So you're completely new to the lifestyle. You don't know almost anything, but you are interested in, and where to start, and how long to wait, and how to approach somebody, and what things to discuss, and so just guide us through a imaginary scenario.
Do you have FetLife.com? I know in New Zealand it's there. Is it in? Okay.
Yeah. Yes, it is.
That is like the Facebook of kinky people. Some people try to use it as a way to find mates, find sexual partners, but I guess mate means a friend in New Zealand. Here it means a sexual partner. But you can do a search for the village, city, or town that you live in, and you'll find where these munches that I was talking about, where they happen. And that would be a step to get into your local community to get education. Before that, listen to this very show that I'm on, that I'm a guest on. And thank you so much for having me again. I'm honored. My podcast, you can listen to it. It is a 101 podcast. We've been going, like I said, for 5 years. There's lots of information out there. There's all kinds of books and education, so that you will have some kind of idea what you're getting into from the beginning. And then you attend these munches and you get to know some people. And if someone, you meet somebody that you would like to, what we call play with, have a scene with, or something that you're interested in, do not go to their house. It's done in public, at a public event, a party. Now, the party might be at someone's house, but you're not there alone with them. There's going to be 20 or 50 other people there. There's safety in numbers, and of course, ask about them. We call it vetting. You are asking other people about this person. Hey, have you played with them before? Or do you know what they're like in relationships? One of the most important things is take your time. Absolutely take your time. I've been in this 25 years, 26 years. I'm only 44 years old. Hopefully I have another 30 or 40 years left to keep doing this wonderful thing that we do. And I could try something new every single day of my life. I could try 5 or 10 things new every single day of the rest of my life and still not get it all done. And that's okay, because there's a lot of it that I'm not going to want to do. And if I don't educate myself on it, then the chances of me getting hurt or hurting someone else is incredibly, incredibly high. Some of the things that we do are extremely dangerous. Some are extremely sensual and romantic and divine and heavenly. It just depends really what you're into. But so step 1, get education before you ever do anything else. Step 2, attend local munches, get to know people. Step 3, attend some parties and do not participate as a player. Just watch and talk to people, ask questions, but do not play, because there's a thing called frenzy. And I'm sure you'll want to talk about that too, because a lot of abuse comes from frenzy. But that is where you get so wrapped up and excited in the moment. You're like a little gerbil in one of those little Ferris wheels, just running and running and running, but you're going nowhere, but you want to do all the things. Take a breath, calm down, and go at it slowly, because so many bad things can happen if you don't. And the worst thing is to wake up the next day thinking either, oh my God, what did I get myself into? Or, oh my God, what did I do last night? Why did I agree to that? Excuse me. And, that for me, I've had this happen where I have negotiated out a scene, a playtime with somebody, and everything was talked about. There wasn't anything done that wasn't talked about. The only problem was, and I didn't know this at the time, but this was this particular person's first time at a dungeon. They've never been to a munch. They seemed like they were extremely well educated. They lied to me about how long they had been around in the scene, and I didn't question it because they were knowledgeable. And the next day I got a phone call from one of our leaders, and they said, so you played with such and such last night? And I said, yes, I did. You were there. You saw it. They've got what we call buyer's remorse, where you go shopping, you buy a bunch of stuff, and then you're upset after you buy it because you spent all your monies. And she's upset, and she's saying that she kind of feels like you coerced her into doing these things. And I said, no, we talked about it. There's messages where we talked about things that very day. And they're like, okay. And we all had to meet together. I met with her and the leaders, and we discussed it. But it killed me inside because she felt that I had taken advantage of her when it was all negotiated. And the problem was, and she's one of my best friends now, so it's not, it turned out okay. But the problem was, she's also an educator. And now that's one of the things that she educates on is frenzy, because she was very much into frenzy, and it caused her to do things that unfortunately she did regret the next day. So it's very important that not playing your first time or first couple of times in a dungeon setting is important, because you really, no matter how old you are, I've seen this out of people who were 18, 19 years old. And I've seen this out of people who were 50, 60 and brand new to what we do, thanks to the book 50 Shades of Grey. And, and they're getting out and they're trying to live their best life. And then they go and they do something, and then they regret it. And, oh, I wish I would have waited, because it did not land well within themselves. And that can be bad. I mean, that can be bad for everyone involved. And this has been years ago, and I still feel bad over the fact that she felt, even though she only felt that way for about 12 hours, because we immediately got together and we talked, and she went over the notes, and she's like, I'm so sorry that, I almost accused you of coercing me into these things. But she says, clearly we talked about it and I agreed to it. And I need to take more time. And, I hate that anybody would feel that way. Just because I'm a large man, a cisgender, heterosexual white man in America, doesn't mean that I have not been taken advantage of or suffered sexual assault before, because I have. So it's, and that's why consent is so near and dear and such a big part. Communication is such a big part of the message that I talk about on my podcast. So, but that would pretty much be the steps, because after that, after you've taken your time with it and you become educated and all of these things, And this could be, it depends on each person's comfort level. For Mayfair, that could have been she stalked us for a year. She watched us all on FetLife for a year before she showed up at the munch. And in that year, she was doing research. She was reading books,
Good.
and watching our interaction with each other in the groups. And then she showed up at a munch, and at the munch, because of her personality, she got invited to a party that the leader of the munch, the group leader, was throwing. And she came and she sat and she watched. She didn't participate. Why? Because one, it takes her forever to make up her mind to do anything, but two, because of protection, self-protection. So I'm so proud of her for that. She impressed me with that, because there was a big part of her that, just like everybody, she wanted to jump in head first and do the thing, but no, she didn't. So,
Well, but after that, so okay, you go to parties, you watch, and then you finally get to play. Well, if you don't know anything, where do you start? You know, yeah. Sorry, go ahead.
No, go ahead. Go ahead.
Yeah, I guess that's my question. How do you improve your skills? Well,
right now, in Atlanta, Georgia, there is a big gathering going on called Frolicon. And so there's like, I want to say 20 or 30,000 people. Some years they have 50,000 people there, but it's classes all day long where you're taught, whether it's the basics of a dynamic of a BDSM relationship, or kinky skills, you name it, they're teaching it there. There's classes that you'll find through these local munches. There's even online schools. I'm putting together an online school right now. Right. So hopefully that'll be launched around March of 2022. But, a lot of the hard skills, flogging, fire cupping, medical play. Some people have a big kink for their doctor or their nurse, and I'm going to cover that and teach how to do that. But you just finding a mentor also is something that is absolutely invaluable. Finding one, if you see somebody at a party that does something that you want to try, then learning that skill from them, there is no better education than that, is just learning that skill from an individual and having a mentor. And that's yeah. And even at my age, like 2 years ago, I wanted to learn how to suspend somebody, tie them up and suspend them from literally a rafter in a basement.
Oh, yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, we call it, rope play. Shibari is another term for rope. And I could do ties on, like I could tie corsets and things like this, but I couldn't do suspensions. And Mayfair really wanted to be suspended. And she talked to me one day, said, "Sir, are you interested in this?" And I'm like, I've never really been interested in this because I've never had a partner that was into rope like you are. But I think it's time for me, after 23 years, again, or 24 years, this was 2 years ago, to learn a new skill. So, yeah. And I went to Dark Angel Ascends is his FetLife name, what we call him within the community. He is a local rigger, someone who ties people up, and he is an expert in what he does. And so every other Friday night, Mayfair and I went to his house, and we did this for months and months and months. And he taught me the proper ways to do this. And there's more injuries in this particular activity than in anything else within the BDSM lifestyle. Now, being that I'm a veteran of the lifestyle, that I've been given the title of master, which there is a master in a relationship, and then there's someone that holds the title of master. I hold the title of master, meaning that the community respects me and respects the skills that I have obtained and the education that I put out, and they have given me the title. And it can be taken away at any moment. If I do something stupid, then I lose the right to use the title. But really, it's just, again, please, just Kuldrin for you. No need to use a title here. I appreciate the respect again. But yeah, finding a mentor, and no matter how old you are, how long you've been around, that would be the last step that never ends. Education never stops within this lifestyle. There's a new thing that came out a few years ago called cell popping. It's basically a type of branding and something that I'm not very familiar with. And I am currently looking for someone to teach me that. So it's never ending. Always admit what you don't know, because as soon as you don't admit it, that's when someone gets hurt. And it's, if you don't care if someone gets hurt, then please do not participate in this lifestyle, because we don't want you.
Well, we're gonna talk about this, people, a little bit later on, because unfortunately this is a sore subject for me, because oh my god, and that's actually scary that how many of these I have come across, and it is scary, and what they do, and the damage, basically, and also the turn off from the lifestyle, what they do is just unbelievable. But let's not a little bit talk about fun part, and then we'll talk about these parasites. I like to call them parasites rather than predators, because I think predator is a unnecessary compliment for such a asshole. Sorry.
I love your explanation of that, because I 100% agree. I mean, in our rules to love by that we have on my show, rule number 1, safe, sane, consensual, and informed. Rule number 2, kinky. That's KNKI. It stands for knowledge, no intolerance, kindness, and integrity. And rule number 3 is a quote from an author. He actually is a Christian author, writes a lot of Christian books, but he says, submission is not about authority, and it's not about obedience. It is about relationships of love and respect. And that is what defines BDSM at its core. Before all of the perversion of these parasites, that is the foundation of BDSM, is relationships of love and respect.
I cannot agree more. Just going back to play, and I think I just thought of something which is, I think it's very important to cover, because in a Latvian BDSM community, I actually have met either two types of people. The ones who have certain impressions from certain books, that they believe that they know everything about the lifestyle, and they just can pick up a flogger and go and do something. And then there are people, obviously these parasites, which we'll talk about a little bit later. I just want to educate people here how important is learn these skills. You cannot just pick, and what damage can do, even like such simple thing as handcuffs, for example. What these things, why you need to be careful. So maybe you could dive into this a little bit more and explain how important it is to be risk aware, and how important it is to actually learn and understand why, learn certain skills, and really being informed about the risk. What might happen if you do not learn and do things properly? Sorry.
that can be as simple as a little scratch that wasn't intended to death. Nerve damage. You said handcuffs. A lot of people want to get handcuffs. It's a starter toy, but it's also something that is very, very dangerous. If people there's single locking handcuffs, so you put them on and they lock, they won't open until you put the key in there and unlock it, but they will tighten up. A double locking handcuff is one that when you put it in and it locks, you put the key in again and turn the key back the other way, and it will not tighten up and it will not open up. But even with it, you've got nerve channels that run down through here, back here, and you can hit one of these nerve channels, and it's actually very easy to do. That's why I highly recommend using rope over handcuffs and learning the proper way, because you can cause that nerve damage with rope. But you can paralyze somebody's hand, and it's actually very easy to do. And it may be temporary and just last for a few days to a few weeks, some cases a few months, or it could be permanent damage. Same thing with tying people around the shoulders. You got a nerve channel here. One of my friends right now, she's had partial paralysis in one of her arms from a suspension, being suspended up in the air by rope. And she knew that was a possibility going into it. It just happened. She accepted the risk of that. You said risk aware. That's part of RAC, risk aware consensual kink. And knowing all of these risks is absolutely vital, whether you are a top or a bottom. I've always wanted my bottoms and my submissives to learn how to be a dominant and learn how to be a top, even if they never use those skills. But I wanted them to learn those things so that they would know from both sides of the spectrum, from the top and bottom side, and the dominant and the submissive side, the safest way to do things, to help. That way, if they were playing with somebody else, if Mayfair said, sir, do you know, we'll say John. Yeah, I know John. Well, I was watching John at a party the other night, and he was, the way that he was using that riding crop, and he did an entire scene with just a riding crop. I would really like to play with him. Well, if she doesn't know proper technique, then how does she know that he did a really good job in that scene with the riding crop? I mean, he could have turned it around and used the back of it to hit somebody across the head with it. And she thought, oh, well, that just looks sexy. But no, that's not good. So it's absolutely imperative for your personal safety to know, no matter what you're doing, what type of play you're doing, wax play, there are certain types of candles made out of a certain combination, which I don't recall what the combination is because I don't use those. I have a certain type of candle specially made that I only use for wax play. But you could, if you use the wrong kind of candle, you could drip wax on somebody and part of that wax catch fire and drip down a fireball, which is like napalm, onto somebody and give them a second or third degree burn. So you're talking about a burn that is so bad it turns into a big blister, or a burn so bad that it actually chars the skin like it's a burnt piece of food. So education is just the absolute most important. And that's another reason why you shouldn't play the first time you go to a dungeon, is because you don't know the proper way to do things. So if that person that turns you on so much, watching them, is doing things wrong, then sure, you might have one fantasy fulfilled, and that fantasy would be having them play with you in whatever way that might be, whether it's sexual or non-sexual, which is another big misconception. 90% or better of the BDSM that I participate in is actually non-sexual. And people think that it's all about sex, it's all about kink, and that's not necessarily true for everyone. But you may fulfill one fantasy, but become literally, physically, and emotionally scarred in the process of doing this. So I don't know if that answered your question, or if there's any specific toys or something that you want me to give advice on.
It was more general that sometimes, as you explained, something very simple can, even the flogger itself, is if you don't know where to hit, it could actually cause some organ damage and so on. So it's just to maybe it's more not so much for myself this time, it's for the audience to understand that you just do not, well, unfortunately there are people who just think that they just pick up any toy and they are masters of that toy and they can use it, and actually they might cause serious damage to other people. And so it's just basically to educate people about this. So
if I may,
yeah,
and I was messaging Mayfair to have her bring in some toys. With the flogger specifically, since that's the most basic of toys within the BDSM lifestyle.
Correct.
When I started out, there was not education out there like there is today. And there was what they call a switch, which means I would beat people and I would get beat. And then I figured out, and I was a slow learner because it took me a few years to figure out I didn't like getting beat. I didn't care how pretty she was, how sexy she was. I didn't want that to happen to me. I didn't like it. So there was a point in time when the education wasn't out there like it is now. And I spent about 2 weeks peeing blood, because one of the things that you do not do is hit somebody in the small of the back around the kidneys, where the kidneys are. And she was flogging my back, flogging my butt, flogging my kidneys, and caused deep bruising in my kidneys. It was, having bruised kidneys is one of the weirdest feelings in the world, and it's terrible. It is absolutely terrible. But I had to go to the doctor because of it, and had to have tests and some invasive tests. Not fun. And the doctor's going, what happened to you? And I'm just like, I got in a fight. So it's learning some proper ways to do things. Can just set them down there on the floor. Thank you. Can save you a lot of embarrassment at the doctor's office as well, even with those floggers. So here is, for anybody that may not have ever seen what a flogger is, leather, pretty braided handle there. And then of course, these are the falls. And these are pointed. You can hit people with just the tips of them and it creates a stingy feeling, or you can hit them with like most of it from about there down, and it's going to create more of a thuddy feeling. But yeah, that is just what a flogger is. It's amazing how many people don't know that, but these are just leather strips. This one's made out of your basic cowhide. I've got some made out of buffalo, some made out of rabbit fur. I've even got one made out of cable. This one's made out of buffalo. This one is very stingy because you can't tell on camera, but these are very thick. And if I'm playing with somebody that likes the thuddy feeling and not stingy, and I use this on them, then I violated their consent. So knowing what your toys do is also essential, and how they feel is essential to when you're playing with somebody. This is the one that scares everybody. This was made, I taught a class, and this was a gift. These are cables like what you would screw into a television, an old type of television with. And this is actually, it looks scary, but it's actually quite thuddy and feels like a massage, but it has that fear factor to it. So, yeah. And then, a paddle, never paddling somebody right in the center of their butt. You can cause a hemorrhoid to burst out. You can break their tailbone. Never over paddling somebody on the back because of all of the bone, especially if it's someone skinny. You can chip bone, break bone, bruise bone. Bruised bones are very, very uncomfortable, and there is hurt versus harm. When I play with Mayfair, which Mayfair is what we call a spanko, she prefers spanking as any other thing. Just my hands are sexy with a leather gloved hand, but with the gloved hand is less stinging. But knowing what position to hold my hand in, whether I want to cup it and create a thuddy feeling that's really a nice loud popping sound, so it creates a psychological thing to it, a flat open hand, and knowing where to do that and where it's safe to do that, and leaving marks, whether it's a bruise or a scratch or a cut or blood or all of these things. It's so vital to know. I've seen people take the side, which I take the side of a paddle, and I'll hit people with it because that is super thuddy. But I've seen somebody draw back and not paying attention to what they were doing. They weren't focused on the bottom. They were focused on the crowd that was watching them, and they hit somebody right in the spine, right at the lower back with the paddle, and caused a ruptured vertebrae or a ruptured disc in their vertebrae. So, yes, very important. Very, very important. So,
got some whips.
Sorry, what?
Got some whips to show?
Let's see. Here's a wall hanging spoon. This thing is as big as my face. She did bring in my whip. This is what we call a dragon tongue because it's short. It's about the length of a necktie. There's one. So this is about 1.5 feet long, and we refer to this as a dragon tongue. It's a form of a single tail whip, but it's basically just rolled up leather that comes to a point. And this will leave a very beautiful mark on someone. And a lot of people who like these to be used on them absolutely love them to be used on them. There's no middle of the road. But there's also one that I've got that's about 4.5 feet long. So it's got a long way to travel to give a real intense pop. Like this feels kind of like getting snapped with a towel. I don't know how that translates to how that would translate to Latvian, but yeah, that wonderful feeling. And then I don't have a cracker on this one. This is made out of kangaroo, and all of the fine whips are, but we refer to this just simply as a single tail because a flogger technically is also a whip.
It is.
But this is a braided kangaroo, and it comes down. Normally there is a piece of string that hangs off of this. I change them out every time I play with someone for medical safety purposes, bloodborne pathogens, that sort of thing. So this doesn't have a fall on it right now, but if it did, that would be the part that cracks. And when you really think about that crack and you think about breaking the sound barrier is what creates that. So that means that the tip of that is going, what the sound barrier is 400 or 600 and something miles an hour. I don't remember exactly how fast it is, but that's real fast. And for some little bitty piece to hit your skin going at that speed, if you hit the wrong place, if you don't know where to hit, how hard you can hit certain places, if you haven't done the education and know these things, and if you haven't practiced and practiced and practiced, specifically with this toy, you're going to hurt somebody. I quit using this toy for many years, and if you don't know how to receive this toy, I quit using one for many years because I was playing with someone and they moved as I was striking, and it caused me to strike them too close.
Ooh.
And yeah, this part of the whip, instead of the very tip of it that would be right here with the cracker, hit them and lacerated their skin, causing a cut that needed 14 stitches.
Mm.
So I quit using it until I was basically over the mental stress of that. Because again, if the person that I'm playing with gets hurt, whether it's physical, emotional, psychological, I get hurt. I take it personally because when you're playing with someone, it becomes so intense. I have played in front of 1,000+ people. And the second that I pick up a toy, every single one of those people disappear. And the only two people that exist are me and the person that I'm playing with. And that creates such a beautiful, beautiful focus. So, Mayfair pulled it up. 343 meters per second is the sound of speed, or breaking the sound barrier, which is 767 miles per hour, 1,234 kilometers per hour. That is fast. So hopefully that better answered the question with some show and tell.
Yeah. Oh, and thank you, Mayfair. Thank you for contributing to my show. Thank you. So yeah, just a comment, but not for somebody claims that they have all this stuff at their home. Well, good on them. I don't.
It can be very expensive.
Oh yes.
Very expensive. Some of it. So it takes a while to save up and buy some of this and then take care of it properly. You want to treat the like I tell people, Mayfair is my most prized toy. And she is the person who is in charge of taking care of my other toys. So I am over all of it, but she is charged specifically with maintaining these so that they get cleaned and conditioned properly, and making sure that not only the toys last, but that disease isn't getting spread. But yeah.
Yep.
Anything else on that topic? Sorry, I'm used to saying that with my show.
Yep.
Yep. My apologies.
No, it's all good. It's all good. To be honest, as I said, I'm even now we are into a show and I'm still a bit nervous. But yeah, that's the way I am. People who know me knows that I've been struggling with stage fright for a very, very long time. And this is my way to trying to challenge and tackle that fear and being in front of people. And yeah.
Well, I think you're awesome. To doing what you do, believe me, I know how hard it is, and to speak that message there's the fall
yeah.
that attaches to it. So yeah, that's
Cool.
the part that you hit the peoples with, just a little piece there, or you can hit them with that knot and it leaves a cute little bruise. But to do it the right way and the wrong way, you've got fun, you've got hurt, which hurt is good, and then you've got the bad way, which is harm, and harm is not the way that we need to go. Not the way we need to go at all.
No.
Oh, she brought in a riding crop. So real quick, for those that didn't know what a riding crop is, it's typically used in equestrian, use it with horses. But yeah, that's a pretty fun, one of my favorite implements actually is, well, I love them all. I can't even, if I had to pick only one, it would be my hands.
Oh, good. Oh, well. Yep. No, I've possibly been listening to your podcast for too long now. Anyway, so yeah, thanks for sharing. That was, I think, really good. And maybe again, I'm focused here on safety and education. Maybe a little bit about also fluids, but what we need to know, because again, we need to be aware that there are diseases out there and what you can catch. And that's why, obviously, when you mentioned that it's very important to take care of your toys, one of the aspects why is also because of these fluids and things. So maybe you could just explain to the audience again, well, why it's so important, what you actually can catch, and why you know, just what you need to be aware of.
It can go from any of the diseases, MRSA or a staph infection, MRSA, VRE. Those are antibiotic resistant strains of staph that cause death. Vancomycin, which is what the V in VRE stands for, is a drug that battles MRSA, but it has mutated to where it can into a strain that's no longer, and then you have to go into the hospital and receive IV for that, because this infection can get into your blood. And once it does that, then you can die from what they call septicemia. And again, I know I'm going to throw out a whole bunch of medical terms here, but I was working in a hospital for some time. Of course, hepatitis is a big one. Hepatitis C is an absolute. HIV, passing along HIV, any of the sexually transmitted diseases you can pass along. Do people think that you actually have to have herpes, for instance? If I am spanking the genitalia of one person with this riding crop, and then I spank the, say I'm playing with multiple people. I have two females, and I'm spanking the genitalia of one person, and then I start spanking the genitalia of the other person, and back and forth, and one of them has herpes. The virus could transmit back and forth like that because it's contact, and it's instant contact. It's not like sitting down on a toilet seat, because they say that it can't be transmitted on a toilet seat. Well, this way it can be, because that's really no different than me using a actual sex toy on them back to back without changing it. So pretty much any sexually transmitted disease can be passed along through toys. One of the things with the single tail whip is are micro tears. So a micro tear is when one of these little bitty fibers, oh, there we go. One of those little bitty fibers, when you get struck with it, might penetrate into the third layer of skin. That's where there's blood. If it penetrates into that third layer and gets just a cell of blood on it that's contaminated, it could get the virus on it. And then if I turn around and I hit somebody else with it and that particular thread hits them, I could pass that virus along to the other person. And that's why I said every time I play with these, if you and I were to play and I use this on you, at the end of our scene, when either myself or Mayfair is cleaning the toys, I would take this off and give it to you. They're super cheap. And it gives you a memento from the scene that we've had together. So, hey, you get a souvenir. But that way I won't turn around and play with somebody else and forget to change it. And then possibly pass something along that was unknown. Of course, in the negotiation part, it's important to discuss any bloodborne pathogens, any illnesses. Diabetes is extremely important to talk about. Blood thinners, if you take any kind of medications, is extremely important. Antidepressants, lithium, mood stabilizers, all of these, because these cause blood clotting. Or if you have a problem with clotting, blood clotting disorder, it's so important to be completely 100% open and honest about everything. That does not mean that I'm not going to play with you. That means that I'm going to do things that I would normally do, but with more presence of mind, just to make sure. It means that I may not use a toy that I might normally enjoy using, or a toy that you want me to use. But I'm not going to be responsible for harming someone. Hurting, absolutely, all day long. I'm a sadist. I receive sexual pleasure from hurting someone that consents to it. There's 4 levels, classifications of a sadist. And if you would like me to get into that, I'd be happy to do so. But
yeah, please do.
Okay. So I'm pretty sure the television show America's Funniest Home Videos was it was an international show. Well, even if you haven't seen that show, I guess the modern equivalent to that would be watching people fall down on YouTube. If you if you laugh, if you think it's funny to watch somebody fall down, stub their toe, then you technically are a class 1 sadist. Now, class 2 means that you enjoy inflicting pain on someone when it is pain that they enjoy being inflicted on them. That is where it's consensual. So, Mayfair enjoys being spanked. I get off on the fact that she likes to be spanked, and I like spanking people. So it does it for me. Class 3 is someone who enjoys breaking the consent of others to inflict pain. Class 4 is someone who will inflict so much pain on somebody that they kill them, and then they will have sex with their corpse. That is a class 4. So you do not want to have an interaction with somebody who is a 3 or a 4. You want to keep it to 2s because that's where consent is at. Some people have fantasies about a 3 and a 4, but fantasies are great to masturbate to, not to encounter in real life unless you have severe psychological issues and you truly want to die. There's no joke to be made there. I'm very serious. Like, some people hear that and they're like, "Oh, well, yeah, you're making a joke there." No, it's a diagnosable psychiatric issue if you really want that, and there's help for that. There's help. So yeah.
Oh well. Yeah, essentially was pretty well explained. To be honest, I haven't heard this explanation before, so it was good to hear that. So, well, let's. I guess we talked about the toys. We talked about consent. No, there is one thing before we talk about parasites, my favorite subject. But let's maybe. I think we started going that path, but we didn't finish. So basically, in terms of relationship, in terms of forming a relationship, either it's dom sub or master slave relationship, but where I mean, so how? Just let's walk through the steps from the first interaction to the color, or forming the formal relationship. So how it should, in ideal world, how it should happen.
Yeah, I did skip over that. I apologize. The attention deficit disorder is a little real today. So it's very similar to a vanilla relationship, which vanilla is not derogatory. It's just someone who is not in the lifestyle. It is the non-kinksters, the non-BDSM players, but it's very similar. You meet somebody, you have similar interests, and you start playing with them. Maybe it's a sexual relationship, maybe it isn't. But you get to a point where you want to offer more commitment to the relationship. And so at that point, you'll move into possibly, after it's been a year or two, a consideration collar. And or a play. Well, you can give someone a play collar before the consideration collar. And what that says is when we're at a party together, our play is going to come first. So if I gave Mayfair a play collar, then when we go to parties, then that indicates to others that she's my play partner and that her play schedule comes before anyone else's, that I'm giving a level of commitment to her. And then after some time, this is where the year to 2 years comes into play, and things are becoming more serious. And the relationship is building just as it would in the vanilla world. There is a consideration collar. And in a master-slave relationship, this is where it goes into training. And it could be 2 weeks, 2 months, whatever. But this is where you start teaching the submissive how you like things done, how you like the coffee ceremony in the mornings or a tea ceremony, teaching them how you want that presentation. Like when I come to Mayfair's house, she meets me at the door. She has a box that she keeps her formal. She's got multiple collars, but her formal collar, she doesn't put it on by herself typically, unless she is needing to fill that and she asks me permission. But that is by permission only that she wears that one. But she will meet me at the door with the box. And even if if I come over here to fix something, like she's got plumbing issues and I need to fix something, because I do that. If I put the collar on her, then she will hold the box. She will bow to me. I will return the bow. She will kneel in front of me and open the box and present her collar up high enough that I don't have to reach down to get it. I don't have to reach up. It's at the perfect height for me just to take my hand, and put my hand straight out, and I grab it, and she sets the box down elegantly in the floor or on a piece of furniture, and I step behind her. She pulls her hair up because she has long hair, and I place the collar on her. Then I walk back around, and I will stand and in front of her, up against her with one leg, and allow her to wrap around my leg. And she keeps her head down, typically giving me a little kiss on the leg. She thinks I don't notice it, but I do. And then I will typically lean down and give her a kiss on the forehead. And then I put my hands out, and she'll place her hands in mine, and I help her to stand up. And then I will give her a proper kiss on the mouth. And that is her permanent collar that she has earned after that period of consideration. So you've got a play collar, a consideration collar, and because the consideration collar within the BDSM community is considered an engagement ring. Like, that is saying that, hey, we're serious and we want to spend a long time with each other. Like, I respect you, I love you, and I want you to be a part of my life. It is a commitment. And there's people who play online that give out online collars, people in real life that I know one guy that has given out, like, in 1 year, he gave out like 30 something collars to people. In real life. Yeah. He's just like, oh, you're now my collared submissive. There's no love and respect there. There's horniness. She gave you an amazing oral pleasure, and so all of a sudden you put a collar around her neck. And I don't even talk to him anymore because it's just he's potentially a parasite. But yeah, and then there's that collaring ceremony, and that collaring ceremony in the vanilla world, and a lot of people that I know around the world, this isn't just America, but a lot of people will have a collaring ceremony as either part of their wedding, or if they're not out and open to their family, they'll have their wedding, but then they'll have their kink friends and family together on the same day or soon there before or after for the collaring ceremony itself. So it's a big commitment to be collared. It's something I see it all the time. People take it as it's nothing. And I mean, Mayfair was my submissive by consideration for, I want to say 3 years before she was collared. 2 or 3 years before she was collared. And, you know, we haven't mentioned this. I also have a wife. You know, I'm married. My wife also participates in BDSM. She is a very scary top. She will beat a man or a woman in such a sadistically playful way. She had one guy singing Christmas songs while she was flogging him. And then the next year he called her and says, "Oh, guess what I heard playing on the radio at work today? Made me think of you." So yeah,
That's a good one.
Yeah, it was singing it was Silent Night. Jingle Bells. Yeah, it was Jingle Bells. So that's the basic steps. I mean, it's not jingle bells. Jingle bells. Jingle all the way. He kind of like looked like he was having a seizure while he was trying to sing and get beat at the same time. I was so proud of her in that moment because I taught her everything she knows. But no, it's really not much different from a vanilla relationship in that way. We just have different things. It's kind of like Alice in Wonderland.
Okay.
Well, if you at the beginning of it, and looking at the book through the looking glass, which is what Alice in Wonderland, the Disney movie or cartoon, was taken from, through the looking glass. In the beginning of it, the door was a door. The mirror was a mirror. The tea set was a tea set. Once you go through the looking glass, the tea set sings and dances. The flowers are singing outside the window. The one of the animals all of a sudden becomes the mailman, the mail carrier. It's all the same, except for it's just a little bit different. And it's more through the looking glass. It's more vibrant. It's more awake. It's more beautiful. It truly is, to me, and this is just for me. I'm not trying to convince or put anybody else down that lives a vanilla lifestyle, but for me personally, it opens us up and gives us a type of enlightenment that you can't obtain within the vanilla world. So I hope that explains the relationships and how we do things. Is that?
I think so. Something I wanted to add on, but yeah, slipped my mind. Well, yes. I guess. Oh, I don't know why I'm so nervous today, but anyway, yeah, I completely agree, and I it's definitely brings more color, but I think it's also brings more honesty.
Yes.
And I think that's the main thing. Why I'm so attractive to the lifestyle, because I think people are more honest in BDSM lifestyle, unless, well, we'll talk about parasites later, unless you're a parasite, and then you are there for completely wrong, different reasons, and then you lie as much as you can and do things to, as I said, things which normally you would not respect anyway. But I mean, I think it's the main thing what I like about it. It is communication and also honesty, that you can actually share your deepest fantasies, and you can be very intimate with your partner, and you can actually, discuss things, which unfortunately in vanilla lifestyle, people are scared.
Yeah. We have a saying in our household, and it's nothing's too weird to talk about. It doesn't matter what it is open. There's 7 members of my household, which is a whole nother thing, that it's just like a group of us that we consider each other family. It doesn't mean that we all play together or we all have orgies or sex, or no, it's just we're a family. We all believe in the same values. And then we have what we call the kitchen table, which comes from polyamory, meaning many loves. And that would be just myself, my wife, and my submissive. Like, we haven't been able to, because of work, and my wife is in school finishing up her master's in psychology to be a therapist. She graduates in December. I'm so proud of her. But so we haven't been able to do this, but for years, one day a week, we get together for dinner with just the 3 of us. Whether, on a Tuesday, Wednesday, or Thursday, one of those days every week, we would get together, just the 3 of us. We discuss things. And a lot of it's me sitting there listening to them talk about who's going to keep me for the weekend. Like, okay, am I staying at Mayfair's, or am I staying at Lady Catherine's? Which, who gets custody of me this weekend? But talking about working out the schedule. Yeah, working out the schedule, things like that. And for the household, for the 7 of us, we meet at a particular restaurant every single Sunday. We eat Mexican food. We drink margaritas. Sometimes we'll go to a Japanese hibachi restaurant. But yeah, I mean, that's just, and nothing is too weird for us to talk about. And just a real quick story, my most embarrassing moment in life that draws me to the lifestyle. This is directly related. When I was 13 years old, I became sexually active by choice at 13. And I had a long-term relationship. Strangely enough, she thought I was 17. She was 16.
Right.
Now, I grew up in a very conservative Christian household. At one point in my life, I was actually an ordained youth pastor for the Southern Baptist Association. Well, nothing was allowed to be talked about in my home growing up. And so TV commercials for feminine hygiene products were, if they come on, we had to turn the TV off or change the channel
Oh my
immediately.
God.
We were not allowed. I was not allowed to take any kind of sex education. Obviously porn wasn't allowed in the house, nudity. We couldn't discuss these things. And so I became sexually active mainly out of curiosity because I wanted to know, well, if something is so bad and so dirty and so forbidden, it's got to taste good, because chocolate cake was also not allowed in my house. And I got a piece of that when I was 12 at a birthday party. Holy crap, that was good. So I wanted to find out what this sex stuff was. Well, fast forward 3 years. I have a sister that's 4 years older than me, and her best friend was my biggest crush growing up. Since I was 6 years old, she was my biggest crush. Well, we're sitting in my house, my parents' house. The TV's on. It's the only people home are me, my sister, and my sister's best friend that I'm just in love with and in lust with. Oh. Well, a commercial for Maxi Pads come on, sanitary napkins, feminine hygiene product. And my sister grabs the remote out of habit and turns off the TV. And she's sitting there embarrassed by the commercial. And I turn around and I see her, and then I look at Catherine, her best friend, and I say, "What is wrong with you women?" And she says, "What are you talking about?" She thought I was talking about why did my sister get so embarrassed? And no, I said, why can women not hold their bladders? I'd been sexually active for 3 years and I did not know about menstruation. It was not allowed to be discussed. My mother and my sister, I found this out years later, they hid their feminine products in a closet in my mother's bathroom that stayed locked. I was not allowed to go in there. And that was the reason why. So when I was 18 years old and I met this girl who was 22, I believe. Yeah, she was the same age as my sister, I think 21 or 22. And her parents were so open and honest with her that she was also a member of a nudist colony that they had, or a nudist resort in Florida, and would vacation down there all the time, and that everything was talked about. And her parents knew that not only did they know about her sex life, she had sex in their house because she lived there. And I'm like, oh, tell me more. And so she introduced me into this BDSM lifestyle where you can't have secrets, because if you do, people get harmed. And yeah, so that communication, if vanilla couples, and I coach couples, it's part of one of the side things that I do for my show. And I coach a lot of monogamous Christian couples, middle-aged, that are not interested in kink. They're interested in learning how to communicate and how to be so open and honest and things not be embarrassing. And that's one of the most rewarding parts of what I do from the show. So, of course, I love those. Thank you, Kuldrin. You saved me from an abusive situation by providing me with the education to know that I was in an abusive situation. But to be able to change someone's marriage and make it work, because I've seen several people in the past 5 years on the verge of divorce, and it completely change because all they have to do is learn to tell the whole truth and nothing but the truth, to be open and honest and own their desires and their issues and take responsibility. By being forced to tell the truth, you're automatically taking so much responsibility.
Oh yeah, of course, of course. However, I guess it's a good segue to change to actually talking about parasites, because and again, explain what I call parasites. These are generally people with antisocial personality disorders or toxic people, who basically enjoys hurting people. They cannot actually live with they can learn eventually, but it's a condition which they actually enjoy manipulation and doing a lot of bad things, and they actually are addicted to that kind of behavior. But what I wanted to ask you, which is that reality is that they actually cannot, there are people who confabulate. They have a condition. They cannot really tell the truth because they just live in a little bit slightly different world.
Yeah.
They do not remember things. They believe their own lies, and they have created such an environment for themselves that they actually do believe that they are telling the truth, but they're not. They're just basically, it's called confabulation.
Yes. Unfortunately, that is something that we run into, and being able to spot that, because typically these are also people who are one-uppers, meaning that if you have a story to tell, then they're also somehow going to come back and tell an even greater story about the same thing. That is one way to spot those kind of people pretty well, typically. Is about the only advice that I have in recognizing them, and then just avoid them. Stay away from them.
Well, yes, but I think it's very hard to spot them, to realize who they are at first. If you don't know, once you have met one, then you can obviously, you know what you're dealing with, and then you can actually see these people all around you and recognize fairly quickly. But if you haven't met one in your life and you've been in that way quite lucky, then all of a sudden you meet somebody who is that way, and it's unbelievable, because the first time you see it's a very nice person, very charismatic, somebody you would be interested in, and all of a sudden, and then they take their mask off, and it's all sorts of, and it's not just one persona, it's about multiple personalities in one. It's pretty amazing to watch, but it's not fun what they do. And they do hide behind BDSM, saying, "Oh yeah, it's a lifestyle," but in fact, they just take advantage of people who don't know. They have not self-educated themselves, and they actually prey on newbies, and not just newbies, but somebody who is naive and it's quite sad. It's honestly really sad.
One of the worst cases I've ever seen of this was a guy that came in who was a online player, and the problem with playing online and only online is it's all a lie, but people force themselves to believe it. When in the IMVU, Second Life, these kinds of games, and people get so wrapped up in them that they're hurting themselves. They're taking paddles and beating themselves with it because their dom told them to. And it's no longer a video game, it's a reality. But we had a gentleman come into the scene, and I use the term gentleman very loosely in this case, who had played online for 5 years. And when he came into the scene, he started telling people that he had 5 years experience, that doing this, doing that, throwing floggers, because his little avatar would flog people or whatever, would whip people or whatever. And he believed, like he actually 100% believed that he was the one doing it because he tapped the mouse and hit a couple of buttons on the keyboard. And it took me literally putting toys in his hand and telling him to flog me to get him to say, no, my play's only been online. And like you said, once you've spotted it, you know how to spot it. And people don't listen to that internal voice enough that tells them, hey, this is a warning sign. Stay away. You need to listen, or obviously not you, but people in general, me too. We need to listen to that internal warning sign a lot. And I got the creeps off of him, and he creeped me out, and I'm like, here, okay. So you can flog me, flog me. Because he was trying to arrange people to come to his house. He wouldn't play at the party. He was trying to get people. It's like, well, I'm new to the community and I'm a little shy when it comes to playing in public. And I only like to. It's always sexual for me. So if you want to play with me, then sex is going to be part of it. And they're like, okay, sure. And some people enjoy being an exhibitionist, and they want to have sex in the club in front of other people while they're being beaten. And they want it done with multiple people. And, so I'm overhearing this, and I'm like, no, just don't go to his house. He's new. Nobody knows him. We can't vet him. He's not given us any numbers from any former community that he's been a member of. He's not given us any names for us to reach out to people, because we're very protective of the people in our community. So if somebody comes in new and anybody gets that bad feeling from them, we check them out. We're like, okay, you moved here from where? And what munches did you go to, or what dungeon did you go to? And then we will immediately be on our cell phone looking it up on FetLife and sending people a message that run the group or that own the dungeon. Like, hey, you've played with, I'm going to make up a name here, but Big Bad Wolf says that they used to come to your dungeon every Friday and Saturday night. Do you know them, and what do you know about them? Because BDSM gets a bad enough rap. We don't, when the parasites come in and the liars come in, that's when it becomes even more dangerous. So he finally admitted to me that he didn't know anything.
That's pretty amazing. So it's like, I've been, I don't know, playing online, piloting planes, and all of a sudden I can go and, fly an airplane. Just that's
perfect
amazing.
Yeah, that's a perfect example. Perfect example. Yeah. Sorry.
I'm just like, no, you don't have to be sorry. I was just like, I am amazed, but at the same time, pretty angry as well, because these people, what they do, is like giving BDSM actually bad name, and there is already a stigma attached to it. And then these people just basically, well, if somebody new comes in and gets picked up by one of these parasites, then what happens is basically that person is scared and scarred for life, maybe, and not going to ever come back to the community because they're just scared. And that's what these people do. My advice, I guess, I could share from is watch out. So I think some signs, it's very hard at first sight. I'm going to be perfectly honest, it's almost impossible to tell at the first meeting because that's where they are at their best behavior. It's very hard. What I could say is, well, obviously, one warning sign is usually they want to move things way too quickly because they know that they're gonna, well, there will be a time when the mask comes off and they want to move very quickly. So that's, if somebody's trying to move too quickly, take a step back. That's one thing. Another thing is watch particularly behavior, well, how he or she is treating other people, not just you, but what he or she says about friends. Because one thing I notice as well is bad mouthing other people. It's amazing. That's the first warning sign. Okay, we all do it all do it sometimes when we're angry or something, but it's not in general. We like people, we praise people, what they do, say good things about people, not just bad. But one thing I notice, it's one of the warning signs as well, they just always focus on bad things in other people. So they
always want to put people down in a way that it makes them look better too. And some of them are really sneaky about it. Like, they'll point out in a dungeon, this is one that I've seen too, that was kind of smooth. Like, I almost respect them for it if I didn't dislike them so much for being a parasite. But I saw it leans in real close. You see how he's throwing that flogger? See how his wrist is out? He needs to turn his wrist in. If he was turning his wrist in, he would carry through so much smoother. See, that's a criticism that is not so intense to put somebody down so dramatically, but that one little thing was just one, it wasn't true, but the girl that he was talking to had no clue that it wasn't true. But it made him look like he was such an expert. And no. Yeah, talking about rushing people, trying to rush you into whatever it is as quick as they can. A big part of that rush a lot of times is isolating you as well. Like, they will rush to get you alone. Let me prove how amazing of a person I am so that I can get you alone at my house. Of course, that's not what they tell you directly. Sorry. Go ahead.
Of course.
You were making awesome points.
No, but it's true. It's true. It's exactly what they're trying to do. And they're also trying to gaslight you. They're trying to say, oh, but we agreed on this. So we never did. We actually never had a let's say, even a negotiation. But it's like you always are made to feel that you agreed on something, which you never agreed.
Yeah, that's a big one these days, especially. Well, I guess it always has been, but the term gaslighting, while it's a very old term, I like that it's came back around because it certainly has given us a way to explain it to people a lot better, and making people understand that there are those people who are so good at convincing you that you start to believe that you're crazy. Maybe I did say that. Maybe I mean, they're so convinced that I said it. Maybe I did, but I don't remember it. And that's another reason why having things in messages can be quite important. Now, in this country, it's illegal to hit someone, period. So we're fighting the law every time we play. every
Right.
time I do an impact scene, because in the United States, you cannot consent to being hit.
Mm.
Well, that's actually not what the law says, but that's what the police want to say that the law says. The law says that you cannot consent to being harmed. And that's why we have the definition of harm and or hurt and harm. Hurt,
Mm.
you know, that's a totally different thing than harm. So
Mm.
anyway, I'll get off on a different soapbox, and I don't want to do that. So.
That's all right. That's all right.
The one thing that I do want to point out that just come to me, I've apologized a few times for interrupting you and this type of thing. One of the big misconceptions about the master or the dominant is that we're these big, angry, stoic assholes. I mean, really, and that, well, you know, if I tell Mayfair to do something, then Mayfair does it, no questions asked. And if I do something wrong, then I don't apologize for it, and things like this. That could not be any further from the truth. We're human. If I do something and it is wrong, then I apologize for it. If I make a mistake, it is my duty to apologize and to make that right. If it's possible, you know, there's some mistakes you just can't make those right. So, you know, but uh, I do apologize to my submissive. I did have a 24/7 slave where I was in control of absolutely everything, and I apologize to them. And that is, I bring that up twofold. One, to kind of break that stereotype, and two, that seems to be a common thread of meeting people online who are abusers, and that is a lot of time people's first introduction into the lifestyle is online in some way. And so you may have somebody that just jumps in there and tells you, well, you're going to do this, you're going to send me naked pictures, you're going to get your husband to take pictures while he's inside you, and you're going to send those to me. No, you know why? Because we haven't talked about that. We haven't negotiated that. And now you're talking about including another person who has also not been part of the negotiation process. And if you point that out, they immediately say, well, you're not a submissive. You're just a dumb little bitch trying to play around, go away. And that, no, the truth is they are not a dom. They are domineering. They're a pissed off boyfriend from high school that wants to tell you what to do because they're so incredibly insecure that they have to tell other people what to do, or they would just run off and I don't know, visit that forest in Japan where everybody goes to in their life or something. It's just, I mean, seriously, it sounds like a joke, but no, I'm quite serious. It's that bad. But anyway,
Well, with great power comes great responsibility, you know, and I agree with you, but there are people out there who will exactly. I love the scenario you played out. Exactly that's what, and yes, they would question. Yes, they would say you're not true sub, or you would say you're. That's one of the common things. You're not true submissive. You're not. You're a dominant. Because
okay.
you're trying. Oh yeah. Because yes, sure.
Let me. Okay, so and this again ties in because this is something that people who are uneducated believe in. And I've seen this a lot. I have a lot of listeners around New Zealand, a lot of listeners in Australia, all over the world, but I talk to a lot of people in those two places. And that is one of the things that comes up there a lot is that culture believes in a true submissive and a true dominant. In America, the abusers believe that anybody or that let me scratch that last part there. We believe that it's typically the abusers that use those terms of true submissive and true dominant. Anybody, I can teach anybody how to be a dominant. I cannot teach you to be dominant, but I can teach you to be a dominant. Same way with submissives. I can teach anybody how to be submissive. However, the thing is choice. And this is why there is no such thing as a true dominant or a true submissive.
Correct.
It is choice. Now, there are personality types that are more dominant. There's personality types that are more submissive. That does not mean that they are true or any more real than anything else. Mayfair is not a doormat. She is one of the strongest women that I know, but she offers me complete submission at times to nearly anything. And that to me is the ultimate in respect. But it doesn't mean that she or anybody else is a true submissive. It means that she is getting as much out of submission that I'm getting out of domination. Actually, she gets more out of it. And that's good. That's the way I want it. I want my submissives to grow and mature and get more out of it, but I put in at least 3 times the work as to what she puts in, because I have to make sure that I'm getting, not only am I getting the education, but that she is doing the education as well, because she's a sub. So she's going to get BDSM education. It's going to be because she wants to know, and I have to tell her, hey, here's this thing, do this thing.
And Master Kuldrin, do you know what a parasite would say in your case? That you are not true dominant, because your submissives are actually making you do things.
Yeah. No, and again, they're not making me. I'm choosing to. But yes, absolutely correct. So that's.
It is so annoying, but I just wanted to inform people that there are so-called DOMs and so-called submissives who are out there to actually, well, basically for completely wrong reasons. They're there to there are people even, it's amazing actually, that they are actually even making collections. So like, oh, how many, fake colors they can put on some,
I've heard of, I haven't ran into, well, I mean, my friend or former friend that collared like 30 something people in a year, but yeah, I've heard about it, especially online.
Yep.
So terrible. So just, it's just wrong, because you're dealing with people and their well-being, and that's the most misunderstood thing about what we do. It's for empowerment. Mayfair's submission makes her feel strong. One of the things that I had with my former slave was come from Asia, and it was just a bow, but it has representation, strength and power.
Yeah.
I may have the power in the dynamic, but she has the strength to endure it. And when these two forces push against each other, they hold each other up. And that was the representation. It's strength over power, or strength and power. And each of us participating in those particular roles, because that's what we need in our lives, and that's where we feel most at home and most comfortable, and complement each other in that way. But yeah, I mean, Mayfair feels more powerful in her when she is in a submissive role with me than when she actually has power over other people at work. I mean, But no, a true dom wouldn't understand that. A
No,
true sub
no,
would
no.
understand
A true dom wouldn't do anything. I heard one guy saying it's all about the submissives. It's not doms just don't get what they want. So
it's all about the submissives. We doms don't get what we want. I mean, there can be some truth to that. There can be some truth to that, and you know, then it's time to reevaluate that situation, because you should both be getting something out of it. But yeah, that would be a time to maybe I'm letting you get away with too much, because then you have the risk of the relationship turning vanilla. No. No, I got that. I got vanilla at home. I don't need that in my dynamic. Anyway. It's a lot of fun. I hope you had me back on. Not that I'm saying I'm done yet. I'm just saying this is a lot of fun. I hope you have me back on. I hope your audience will ask for me back.
Oh, well, I hope so too. Is well, for most of them, it's nighttime now, so we'll see tomorrow. Obviously, well, not for me. It's not tomorrow, but for them, when they wake up, then they're gonna watch and see. But I definitely enjoy it, because I think it's for everyone's benefits, and actually educating and knowing what is truly BDSM lifestyle about, and what is truly within a healthy, and as I said, with an emphasis on healthy power dynamic relationship. Because as I said, there are parasites there, and there will be people trying to take advantage of you, and there will be people who will try to hurt you. And I'm just warning that there are those ones waving BDSM flag, but actually have no idea what really means to be a dominant or be a submissive, and how to treat one if they have one in their lives, or you know. And that is pretty sad. I don't know where this where this idea has come from. Is it truly somebody with a antisocial personality disorder? Well, if it is, then they need to get help. But obviously, often these people don't seek help. That's also the reality. And actually, to be honest, you said you've been working in psychology field. Do you know? I think, realistically speaking, I don't think you can actually help somebody who is a narcissist.
Well, it's kind of like borderline personality disorder, BPD, which is a whole nother thing, and those are quite often abusers as well, and predatory submissives, which is a whole nother thing. They look for dominance to abuse. When it comes to the diagnosis of narcissistic personality disorder and trying to help someone through that, it is possible. It is rare because that means admitting that they have a problem, and the problem doesn't belong to the rest of the world. It is so incredibly rare that it's recognized within themselves. The odds are much greater if they recognize and understand it. Now, if you get into the actual psychopathy with sociopaths, psychopaths, antisocial personality disorder, sociopathic, then you're getting into, it's not only a personality disorder, but there's a physiological issue within the brain itself. So
Right.
you have a difference there, and that's going to be a problem that is, chances are, it's not going to be, you're not going to be able to fix that. If they recognize that it's there, again, they can learn coping skills, but they're still going to have failures because of the way that their brain is made and has developed. And a lot of times it's they're either born that way or a traumatic event when you're young can actually you can have such a chemical burst into the brain of endorphins, dopamines, adrenaline, and adrenaline. I mean, it can serotonin, norepinephrine, all these things. It can basically change the wiring in the brain itself.
Right.
And that's why a lot of these tendencies go back to childhood and childhood trauma. And it can be a singularity or a singular event that took place, or it can be a lifetime of abuse that led up to it. But yeah, some people are just, they say some people are born evil. And that's why that is actually true. Some people, because we consider that type of narcissistic, abusive behavior as evil, so to speak. So yeah, that's I mean, you look at all the different serial killers and that type of thing. I mean, that's a playground of this type of issue, and serial rapists as well that try to sneak their way in as a predator, parasite, despicable, useless human.
Sorry. Well, I don't think they're humans, to be honest. I think there's something human-ish type, but not.
Yeah, I mean, there's certainly
I think
a version
to be called human, you have to have some humanity in you. Well, that's at least my interpretation to that. And if you don't have it, then you're not a human. Well, at least not to me.
They may be a homo sapien, but they're not human.
Yep, that's what
I got you. I like that. I might use that. Put it on a t-shirt. Just because you're a homo sapien doesn't mean you're a human.
Yep. But it's true.
No, it is. I'm not. I laugh at inappropriate times. I apologize.
No.
It is true. It's so unfortunate. A list that I have, and this comes. May I give a brief plug?
Yep.
Okay. So kuldrinscrypt.com, and you can. I don't know if you want to put links up or whatever.
I will do.
Okay. Episode number 9, 10, and 11 of the first season is part 1, 2, and 3 of Red Flags, Fake Doms, and Predators. And I've got some lists there. And one of those lists is pretty well describing. Let's see. I just lost it because I have all 3 episodes opened up. I've got show notes for them. There's a list of questions and answers that you need to ask people. What questions can you ask a Dom? The following questions were provided by a master as ones that he would like a sub to ask him. So just to find out what people know, what they don't know, just ask them what is SSC or what is RAC? What is the cornerstone of BDSM? They should be able to answer those really, really easy. If they can't, then you know that they don't know what they're talking about. What is their training style? If they don't know what that is, then chances are, even if they don't practice a master-slave dynamic, they're still going to know about it. How do they intend to adjust it to your personality? A person who tries to train their submissive or their slave, every one of them throughout their life, the exact same way, they're doing it wrong because you're not creating robots. How I trained Mayfair was certainly different from how I trained my former, the one before her. It because I have to adjust it based on the person. Every person has different needs. What is the job or purpose of the sub? What is the job or purpose of the dominant? If they were to use an implement on you, how would they gauge how hard they're hitting you? That's a very interesting question. If you don't have experience yourself, if you don't have education yourself, you're not going to know the answer to that yourself. And I'm not going to give it to you because I can't. That's something that you have to know. But to kind of give an example of that is, how do I gauge how hard I'm hitting spanking Mayfair? Is by her body reaction, the heat of the area that I'm spanking, the sounds that she's making. Was that a when I hit her, or was that a there's a big difference there. I mean, there's 1,000 little cues that I'm tuned into to pick up on her and anybody that I play with. I read bodies really well. That's why I love pickup play. How do they tell if I've had enough or reached your limit physically or mentally when we're playing together? Do they use safe words? If they don't use safe words, run away. There's a saying. Yeah, there's a saying that says if you're too safe to use safe words, then you're too unsafe for me to play with. No, never play without safe words. How do they tell? Let's see. If you are going to be intimate, would they be willing to be tested for STDs and STIs and provide you with the paperwork? Never, ever take anybody's word on it. If they will not show you, then one, they either did not get tested, or two, they've got something and they don't want you to know it. They're embarrassed by it. There's workarounds for most of it. Just be honest, people. Ask them what aftercare is. And how do they intend to handle sub drop if it happens several days later? What are some munches and parties that they've attended? Are they willing to give you the names and contact information of the organizations or of the organizers? Now, as newbies, you may not be able to evaluate these answers fully. However, you can judge whether a dom or a dome, which is a lady dom, is willing to answer the questions, and even better, if they're enthusiastically discussing these questions and answers with you. They want people who are interested in this lifestyle for real and not just trying to come and screw as many men or women or people as they can and then go to the next town and do the same thing. They want to be involved in these conversations. And some of these questions will lead you to very long and very wonderful discussions that are very intimate. Some of the best times that Mayfair and I had were leading up to the finalization of our contract and talking about these things very in depth. And it's just beautiful. I mean, there's no other way to say it. If somebody's name dropping on you, oh, well, I know Master so-and-so in Los Angeles, California. He's one of my best friends, and just name dropping these famous people within the lifestyle. Run away. That's so rude. It's just bad form, and anybody with any sense that's been around the lifestyle should know not to do that. I've traveled around quite a bit teaching and stuff, and the only names that I ever drop on my podcast in 5 years are people that I know, that I have met, that it applies to the conversation, and that mostly they have been a guest on the show. So yeah, just something else to watch out for as far as parasites go.
Oh, there is, yeah. Oh, actually, I wanted to ask, have you heard of hypno kink?
Hypno kink?
Yep.
The actual hypnotizing people for kinky pleasures? Yes.
Yep.
Yes. Yes.
Yep.
It is well, what are your thoughts?
No, I actually no. Please continue. I wanted to steer the conversation in a different direction, I guess, but please continue. It's good. Explain what is heap knocking.
Oh no! If you want to go somewhere, I mean, it just people get into a psychological state of mind where they're easier to convince to do things, and some people are really into it. Some people are really good at it. It's something that I haven't personally practiced. I've only seen it done in front of me, and I've often wondered the validity of it. Like, is this
Right.
something real or not? Because if it is real, it's scary. Because if you can so easily convince somebody to do anything that you want them to do, then with great power comes great responsibility. And so you could easily violate somebody. So it's the people that I know that do it are highly respected people, and quite often will only play in public or in a small private setting as a way of protection. And I know one person prefers to record their scenes and then on a video camera, not a cell phone. That way it won't automatically upload to a cloud storage service, and then immediately delete it after the scene is done as part of the aftercare for
Right.
themselves. So, which is highly, highly ethical and very impractical for most people. But I respect the hell out of them for it. Safety first. So where else was you wanting to go?
No, it's like using hypnosis to get out consent, or trying to, as you just explained, but not without. I mean, I'm talking about not. Well, you have experience where people are doing consensually. They have negotiated things and they're doing it properly, the way it should be done. I'm talking about using the same techniques to actually, again, hurt somebody and just take advantage of.
Yeah, and I've heard stories, but I've not actually talked to anybody one-on-one that has been a victim of it. I've heard a lot of stories about it. So it makes me question whether or not it should be something that we teach in kink. I know there are classes on it at most of the large conventions. You can take classes on it. And that's one of the things. I've talked to one of the instructors that does it. And, it's like, aren't you worried that this is going to be used somebody's going to take your techniques and use them to abuse others? And at that point, the conversation was pretty much over. Like they wouldn't talk to me anymore after that. So I don't know if I just insulted them or if I didn't, or if they had been attacked by that question previously. And so they thought that I was going to attack them when really all I wanted was information. But fortunately, I've not talked to anybody who is actually a victim of that particular type of abuse.
Because as you said, it does sounds pretty scary, and and if it's true, then I think we should be aware of that but there are definitely techniques which are used by, let's say, cults and like religious cults and so on, that people play and try to get consent out of you that way. And as I said, gaslighting was one of these methods. Then there are other ways, just basically just trying to do whatever they want, and it is pretty scary. And just trying to convince, even sometimes just telling you complete lies. And one of the red flags I could also say is if somebody says, well, I like BDSM, but not quite the way these guys, not with the rules, run. It's just like, no, you just do. If the rules are not for you, then sorry.
Yeah. No, and you brought up the gaslighting again. There is a form of hypno kink, and I think it's the terminology of hypno kink that kind of makes it hard for me to give exact, because gaslighting, just as you were saying there, or just prior to you saying that, it did like click in my head. Well, the gaslighting and these type of psychological manipulations are certainly forms of an altered or hypnotic state, as you were talking about, like cult behavior. And yeah, don't drink the Kool-Aid. Don't drink the Kool-Aid. But there is also like that stereotypical hypnosis that is used and is a kink as well. When I did the DomCon interviews from DomCon in Los Angeles back in 2019, I believe it was, I interviewed a gentleman named Trevor, and that was his primary kink, was hypnosis. But as a second part of that, well, the first part of that conversation, other than, well, what is it and what do you do with it, was how important communication between himself and the person that he was playing with is. But no, gaslighting and just general manipulation. One of the things that really gets to me is that high school mentality of, well, if you really cared about me, you would let me stick it in your butt. I mean, that kind of thing. Like, no, I'm not into anal play. What do you mean you're not into anal play? But we're so sexual and we love each other, and we've been in this dynamic for a year and a half now, or 6 months now, or whatever. Yeah, but anal is a hard limit for me. Yeah, but I mean, we're in this for the long term, and we care about each other. So, why won't you let me try to, just a little, just let me try to put the tip of it in. Come on. I mean, this is like high school stuff. Like, really? And the thing is that we fall for it. We're like, oh yeah, they're right. We have been together a while, so I'm going to allow them to break my hard limit, which your hard limits are not supposed to be questioned, period. If Mayfair gives me a hard limit, then that's a hard limit, and that doesn't come back up. Now, if it's a soft limit, that means that it's up for negotiation from time to time. A hard limit, absolutely not. But that's something that that these parasites, that really gets parasites off.
Oh,
If I may be crass for a moment, that just gets them hard, gets them wet, and gets their engines revved. Is being able to manipulate you into giving up one of your hard limits, no matter what it is, even if it's something they're not into. If they're the type of person that passes out from the sight of blood, but one of your hard limits is bleeding or blood play, then they'll talk you into letting them take a knife and scratch you with it to the point of bleeding, and they'll pass out, but they'll pass out with a hard on because they have been able to manipulate you into giving up one of your hard limits. I mean, it's scary. It really is.
yes.
But it makes me ashamed.
I want to question something I thought of about hard limits. I actually think that they can change,
Yes.
as you grow as a person, as you grow into, your knowledge grows and everything about life, so they can change. I'm not saying it's going to be today is it's my hard limit and tomorrow it's not, but it can change over a period of time, I think. So
Absolutely. But it's not my job as the dominant to try to talk you into changing those hard limits. When Mayfair and I redo our contract, we start at the beginning from the ground up, and everything that's on there that is on her hard and soft limit list are talked about. Everything that's on there for me as a hard and soft limit is talked about. We'll take the old contract and say, okay, is this still a hard limit? Yes. Is this? And the answer may be no. That's no longer. It's been 6 months or a year. No, that's no longer a hard limit. Let's move that over to soft limit, or something that was an absolute green light before can become a hard limit. It's all fluid. It's all in movement. And yes, you absolutely right. Your limits will change. Typically people's limits will open up after they've been around for a while, because you become more comfortable and more experienced. And I know I held an event in July. It was a taste of kink. And so we had fire play, massage, needle play, primal play, knife play, or blades, rope. And so everybody come in, and it was just a little tasting booth. So you get up, wax. Mayfair ran the wax table. And so they would, one person that come in, her absolute no was needles. That was the one thing. She had no interest in it. Nothing. And then she stood there and she watched somebody, and she's like, I'm going to give this a try. And she says, okay, can you put one needle in, and it just goes in underneath the skin and comes back up? And so they did that, and she immediately like, oh my God, this is great. May I have a few more? And like, that's now her primary kink. And
wow.
it was not because somebody said, hey, you need to try this. It was because she watched and she thought, now this is a person who's been around for several months. She's been to dungeons. She's played here and there. She's highly educated, highly intelligent. In fact, she holds a PhD. Which is another misconception that in the United States anyway, that most people that participate in BDSM are just like rednecks or lower income people. Or I mean, there's people of every single ethnicity, every single socioeconomic level that participate. And one thing that people really don't realize, if you've ever been blindfolded, if you've ever been spanked during sex, if you've ever scratched anybody, if it's ever felt so good that you've growled during sex, then in fact you have participated in an act of BDSM, and you are a kinkster. You may be just a wee little tyke, but you're a kinkster. So anyway, I have lots of tangents.
Good. Well, on that note, maybe we can end this episode. I thank you so much for coming and talking to me for more than 2 hours, almost 2.5 hours, and I enjoyed, and I also learned so much. I actually would have more questions to ask, but I have to do some things that take my boy to dinner and stuff. So they have they're having a so friends get together tonight. So it's great. So
lovely.
So yeah,
It's been an honor and an absolute pleasure. I know I take a lot of tangents, but you can always feel free to interrupt me or reel me back in. If you ever decide that you want to have me back on, please let me know. I would absolutely love it. And one question that I do have for you, if I may,
Yeah,
would you
sure.
pronounce your name for me?
Okay, yes. Well, I will say several versions because, okay, if you do it completely correctly in Latvian, is Ilze.
Ilza.
However, most of my Kiwi friends cannot say it, and people at work either. So either I have several versions. Most common one is Ilza, so they find it easier to say Ilza. Then is I'm with Ilse and I'm with Elsa. So there's all sorts of versions around it, and I don't mind. I'm actually don't get offended. As you know, easiest way for you to pronounce it. It's okay. It's always been okay, and I don't get offended. But I do have several guys at work who are very particular how their name should be pronounced, and almost to some but that's a completely different topic. It's just like they're very proud of their given names, so they must be pronounced in particular way, and if you don't say in that particular way, they will not answer.
We have a saying here that I'm sure translates in many different languages and with many different peoples around the world, but it goes, I don't care what you call me, just make sure you call me for dinner. Just make sure I'm around the table when it's time to eat, and I'll be a happy, happy man. Oh, but no, sorry, I had to end on a joke. But no, seriously, thank you so very much. And I mean it. Anytime that you want to have me back on, just let me know, and I would be more than happy. I wish I could have read some more of the comments there in the chat, but hey, I understand.
Well, there were few at the beginning, but they weren't anything. Is more just question. Well, basically saying hello, and that's pretty much it. And some people questioning, well, why this is 18 plus, because we're not doing anything which should be 18 plus. But hey, I chose it for a reason, and because some people might find it offensive and sensitive. So
Facebook has their rules too.
Yeah, correct.
Yeah. Even though no F-bombs were dropped.
Anyway, well, thank you so much, and yes, would be a pleasure to have you again after some time, and thanks everyone for watching. As I said, I'm still nervous. I'm still trying to. Well, anyway, it's all good. Thank you. Bye.